In the early 90s, many development studios decided to dabble in the RPG genre. Whilst attempts were not always successful, sometimes you could find some real gems among the trash. Capcom was one such studio who attempted to cash in on the trend with the release of Breath of Fire for the Super Famicom in Japan in 1993. Later, it was sent west to the Super Nintendo in 1994 for NTSC-compatible systems. If you were unfortunate enough to live in a PAL territory, you didn't see this game until it was ported to the Game Boy Advance, with quality of life enhancements, in 2001. The game has also appeared as a digital download on the Wii U Online Store, and was included in the Nintendo Online offering for people who have subscribed to the Nintendo Switch Online service. For the purposes of this review, I played the port that's offered on the Nintendo Switch. We start the game as an unnamed boy who, after being visited by a dragon in his dreams, is woken from a deep slumber to a wreath of smoke and fire. Though the character is a blank slate who we can name, I'll refer to him by his canon name, Ryu. Ryu is a member of the Light Dragon clan, a cohort of human-like beings who can transform into dragons. Their counterpart, the Dark Dragon clan, has waged war upon them and the rest of the world, in their desire to unleash an ancient goddess who promises eternal prosperity. Little do the Dark Dragon clan know, the Light Dragon clan have sealed their transformative powers long ago and currently pose no threat. With the Light Dragon clan on the brink of being rendered extinct, Ryu's sister Sarah makes a stand, turning all the remaining villagers to stone in an attempt to protect them from intense flames, and goes out to meet the invading army by herself. Upon meeting the general of the Dark Dragon clan in combat, she finds her power matched equally, and has a difficult time keeping up with the mysterious man. Soon, everything fades to black. Some time later, we are restored from our stone form, and tasked by the elder of our clan to go out into the world to try and save it. Where some other RPGs on the Super Nintendo, which admittedly came later than this one, held your hand giving you direction and purpose, Breath of Fire just dumps you into the world and expects you to figure out what to do via trial and error. For example, the first port of call is a town called Camlin, to the north of your hometown. However, nowhere this early in the game is there made mention that the town is called Camlin, nor do you know that you're supposed to go inside the castle in the town to clear it out, as the monsters are pretty tough for a solo low-level hero. If you are coming in fresh to the genre, then I'd caution against starting with this game, unless you make diligent use of a guide, otherwise you will become extremely lost, and maybe just a little frustrated. It even takes a few hours before Ryu acquires his first companion, which then makes the game marginally easier to manage. There are several locations that Ryu and his companions must visit during their adventure, from dungeons, towers, and towns. A thorough explorer is often handsomely rewarded, so it pays to look in every dresser in town, and to search every nook and cranny in a dungeon to find all the treasures that they have to offer. I really enjoyed the design of the dungeons, as they often had twisting paths or gimmicks that made them a little more difficult to navigate, though not entirely impossible. Where some other early games of the genre may have opted for almost linear paths and no dungeon mechanics, I am glad that Breath of Fire decided to take a risk with the way it integrated its gameplay experience. Speaking of how unique this game is, I really appreciated that each character had a personal skill that could be used on the field. For example, Bo can shoot wild animals that appear on the map to gain some items, whereas Ox can punch objects to break them or knock things out of trees. Each character has a skill that benefits the party through the course of the adventure. Then there's Khan, who later learns the ability of fusion, and becomes a powerhouse as he combines with other members to take on their unique traits, and increase his own stats. That's not to mention that Ryu eventually learns the ability to transform into a dragon, which forms a staple of the series. Whilst exploring hostile areas, your party will be drawn into battle in the form of a random encounter. I've often seen complaints that the encounter rate in this game is too high, but I found that generally speaking it wasn't too bad. Additionally, if you don't want to get into encounters, you can use an item that negates them completely for a set amount of time, though I'd advise against using these liberally, lest you end up having your ass kicked by a powerful boss later down the line. Encounters themselves are turn-based with an isometric view, where you select a command for each character before they execute them. Generally speaking, a healing spell and Ryu's dragon transformation will take priority, with everything else coming after, determined by the speed statistic of characters and enemies. Whilst each character may be unique in design, not all of them bring battle abilities equally to the table. Some, like Bow and Ox, even start with a selection of spells, never to learn any more, which was a little disappointing. Gorby, on the other hand, can only use his magic when underwater, which accounts for such a small portion of the overall game time that it's almost useless. But if you find that you have a battle party that isn't quite optimal for the encounter, you can change your party lineup in the middle of battle with a simple command. I didn't use this much, but I appreciated that it was there. I also noticed that characters tended to level erratically, with Blue being 10 levels higher than some of my other characters at some points. I guess when you're an immortal powerful snake sorceress, it's to be expected that you excel at everything. Often at the end of a dungeon and in some other places, you'll need to fight a more powerful adversary. These boss enemies can sometimes take a lot of hits and can even shrug off the killing blow, gaining an extended invisible HP bar that draws the battle out longer. Generally I didn't mind this, though there were some enemies that just refused to die, whilst laying the smackdown on my party. I never had a complete party wipe, however there were times where a character may have fainted in battle. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for everyone's favourite game, What's That Enemy? Guess the enemy, win fabulous prizes. Now here's today's home viewer question. Those perfect squares, that salmon pink finish, what could it possibly be? A. A flying sardine? B. Nina's bath time rage? C. A beak? Or D. A slime? Please choose wisely as you only have one chance to win. Okay, have you selected your final answer? Last chance, please. Let's lock it in. Okay, let's reveal the correct answer. Oh, right. It appears that would be a spoiler. Sorry friends, but you're gonna have to play the game for yourself. Seriously. Thank you for playing What's That Enemy? If you want more quality programming in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe for more great content. During your adventure, towns will provide respite to a weary traveller, with some townsfolk offering hints as to what to do next, along with inn services, a storage service, item stores, and places to buy equipment. The towns generally had different designs and vibes to them, and I really enjoyed exploring each unique place as I progressed my adventure. One minor gripe I did have was that some towns had multiple houses that had the same interior and were uninhabited, which kind of broke my immersion. It would have been nice if some of the townsfolk were inside the houses rather than out wandering the streets. Don't worry though, if you're confused, some store owners may offer an additional relaxation service if you are inclined to pay them a discreet fee. In addition to leveling your characters to make them stronger, it's also important to make sure they are outfitted for the adventure. Whilst you can purchase new equipment from the aforementioned store in towns, you may also find them in chests amidst the dangerous places of the world. It's important to make sure that you equip your characters with strong weapons, though also be mindful of some hidden effects that they may have. For example, one item early on for Nina will exponentially increase the encounter rate if you have it equipped. The annoying thing is that there is no way to find out what the additional effect of a piece of equipment is until you equip it and take it for a test drive. There is nowhere in the menu system that explains the properties of equipment other than to denote attack or defense stats and who can equip them. On the topic of the lack of information, additionally there is no way to find out what magic does until you use it in battle. Often you'll use a spell and then the notice that pops up when casting it will have an entirely different name. I found this to be quite confusing when some spells didn't do anything close to what I thought they would. Your inventory space is also extremely limited, with key items being stored in the same place as the rest of your items. There is no way to automatically sort your items, so unless you are manually sorting your inventory, you are going to have a bit of a time finding things amongst the mess of text. I touched on the story a little at the beginning of this review, but I wanted to further elaborate that if you're looking for an epic, then you're not going to find it here. The story of Breath of Fire is as cliched as they come, with little to no character development, and a very shallow story that basically comprises of going from point A to point B, sometimes via point C. The story is functional for what it is, but you're not going to need to dry your eyes, or nurse a stitch after a fit of laughter, as this game doesn't really draw any of those emotions from the player. I think that's to be expected from Capcom's first foray into the RPG genre. It also didn't help that Squaresoft managed the localization of the text, which caused some of the strange naming of items and spells. If anything, It's best to go in with no expectations, take it for what it is, and then appreciate what the future titles improve upon, as I can assure you that the later titles in the series are definitely worth playing. That's not to say that you shouldn't play this game, I just feel like you really need to temper your expectation, so that you're not disappointed going in expecting something mind-blowing. Though people that have played this game in their childhood, who are wearing their rose-coloured glasses, yeah, you know the ones, may disagree. The visuals of the game are not really anything to write home about either, however I did appreciate the attention to detail shown within battles. For starters, when drawn into battle from the field screen, the battle backdrop will almost always reflect the last tile that your characters had stepped foot upon, such as a bridge tile, or not displaying the walls in an invisible maze. Additionally, unlike in the early Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy games, characters in Breath of Fire animate well when they attack the enemy. There are also a few occasions in the game where the story is told through dialogue and an art panel. I really like this touch and wish this was used a bit more. One other thing I wanted to mention about the art was the box art for the game, in the West. Let's pull it up. Okay, so we have a very buff looking Ryu who is suddenly a man brandishing a sword. Okay. In the background there's Nina with a lesbian haircut. There's Blue with her obligatory tits. Sure. Okay. We can also see Ox because, you know, we need more masculinity, right? So how are we going to appeal to our women gamers? I know. Let's stick a fishman on there. Women and some men love fishmen, don't they? But seriously, what were they thinking? I'm not sure why there was a huge push for ugly box art in the West, but Breath of Fire certainly didn't avoid that brush. It's like they were trying to make the characters look like Marvel superheroes. Why not just stick to the original box art which resembles the character sprites? I mean, the 90s were a crazy place, let me tell you that. Due in part, I guess, to the game coming out in the early stages of the Super Famicon's life cycle, the soundtrack isn't very robust. There are only a few tracks for dungeon themes, and town themes are not much better. There really isn't a great deal of memorable tracks here, though what we do have are sometimes catchy. Also, the world map theme changes as you progress into the story, which was one thing that I really appreciated in this game. My favourite track, if I had to pick one, would be Deep Forest, which has a mysterious chord backed by exotic instruments like the Jamaican drum. It was just so catchy. Though I do wish tracks didn't restart every time you finished a battle. I want to enjoy the full loop, goddammit. Breath of Fire was an ambitious first attempt at an RPG by Capcom that may have fell a little short of the mark. Though it isn't a game I would highly recommend, I think it's a good idea to play if you want to experience the other games the franchise has to offer, in order to understand the lore and history. Whilst the game did not deliver an epic, it did innovate with creative dungeon designs that made exploration a little more interesting. If you did want to play this, my recommendation would be to play it on the Nintendo Switch if you have one, though I hope you enjoy slow walking. By the way, there were many development studios that made early RPG series that are not around today. Which series would you like to see revived in the future, and why? As always, thanks for taking the time to watch my video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Thanks again, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye for now.